So I'm sat here, and we're waiting for the opening titles to kind of run, and all of a sudden my chair goes boom like that, and it's gone.
I am here of. Squeaky. Yeah, I shall try not to. I'm very aware that it squeaks, and I've oiled it and lubricated it and done whatever, and the chair, yes.
You know what? I think I'm going to have to go onto IKEA's website and actually get a new chair, because I got these 10 years ago now, so they've done sterling service for Queen and Country, but this one,
I don't know where this one came from, to be honest. I honestly don't. I think it might have been from my brother. At least one of them's from work. But yes, unfortunately, they do have a definite lifespan before they start creaking. As which is kind of like a metaphor for life, really, isn't it?
Well, especially when you think that this one here, I've had this one 10 years, so seven of those 10 years had old me sat on them, which was quite a punishment. So I think we need to get a new one. I'm just glad it went during the opening credits and not actually when we're broadcasting live. Although last year I did during the summer I did pop round to see my friend Lisa, and we were sat in their garden having tea, and all of a sudden the chair I was sat in, it just suddenly went, and I was literally it was like a comic. I was sat there with my backside on the ground, but with my legs poking up through the.
I at festivals I am destroyer of camping chairs. Because as you do at festivals, obviously you're prone to the odd libation, and then you gradually get less and less careful about how you sit in said camping chair.
Yes.
And then it all goes horrifically pear-shaped.
Yes. So anyway, welcome to Chair World tonight. We'll be discussing the various needs of your derrieres and their seating requirements. But actually, we've got stuff to talk about tonight, and we're both trying to be very clever tonight by having our live workshop cameras in place, which is always
trying to be very clever. I'm already clever because I'd sorted mine out months ago.
Anyway, so we're going to be doing that. We're also going to be we've got a pile of kits turned up tonight, which we're going to kind of like talk about at the same time. And Drew's got something he's going to talk about tonight, a live unboxing. Ooh. And first bit of news, and this is a bit of news, breaking news, exclusive. You would not have heard this, and that is that our very own Froome Model Centre are going to be the UK distributors for Toyota. Now, this is the company we've spoken about on this show before, and they do. They've been doing that Panther and the Strabacran that goes with it, and one of their recent ones that they announced they're doing was the 48 scale T90 with a Tiger armored vehicle. So the good news is there will now be a UK distributor for these, and is like I say, it's our very own Froome Model Centre here in Somerset. So I'd say that's a bit of jolly good news to start the show off with.
Well, I like that because I'm a firm believer that 48 scale is the best scale for armour, and I particularly like doing modern armour. So that T90 stroke Tiger combo very much has my attention. I'm just saying,
It's just so transparent. It's like, goodness me, man.
I'm trying to be all subtle, like, and just saying, because you don't want to build a T90.
I must admit, I do like the look of that little Tiger thing. But anyway, we'll negotiate this closer to to negotiate terms at a future date.
I've found there's no point in being subtle about this stuff. Just say it.
I've discovered down the years there's absolutely no point in negotiating with you, because you just march into my workshop, say, "Oh, I like that," and then that's the last I see of it. So it's
it always works out.
It works out for you, mate. Anyway,
it's like alleviating the stress from you.
You built that Seahawk. You built that Seahawk you liberated from me.
No, you'll want it back at some point. It's been going between us for 15 years. I don't see why it should stop now.
I wouldn't like one of my Neil Peart books back at some stage, the one I haven't even read yet. So,
well, again, we're back to negotiating, aren't we?
We're back to negotiating, getting my own stuff. But it's that old Onion headline, isn't it? Borrowed CD slowly integrated into own collection.
It kind of osmoses into the collection.
Yes. Right. We're going to talk about some stuff tonight, and you might have seen earlier on we had a delivery Sunday morning. Mr. Farmer called. It wasn't an offer for a job in the fire escape trade, but it was a big box of Italeri stuff. And first of which is, and we spoke about this one last week, but we're going to kind of go through it again tonight because we've actually got a kit in hand. And I know I think Drew's built this one, so he's got a bit of input as well. And that is the Eschi 48 scale MB326. Now, I'd never seen this kit before, so this is absolutely brand new to me. And it has got to be said,
I have to confess, I have never built this kit.
Right, okay, but you know of it.
Oh, I've seen it built many times.
Many times. Right. First of all, as we lay it onto the little pad here, I'm not joking.
I love the fact that it's 2.2 sprues, isn't it?
Well, this goes back to what we were discussing, and I've just noticed that the camera shifted back to the widescreen again. Never mind. This goes back to what we were discussing pre-show. Is I wonder whether Eschi actually started out with this as a 72nd scale kit and then decided to upscale it to 48.
I mean, I guess that potentially yes, but I think also at that time in the early 80s, it was kind of like the second slew of Eschi kits, if you like, started coming out in about 1980, where they went kind of recessed detail and stuff, but they were still very simple, very basic, even in 48 scale. So I guess there's a potential that it would have been, intended for 72nd originally, but I wouldn't take it as read based on all a lot of the earlier or the mid-range Eschi kits, I should say, sort of 80 to 84 sort of time. Mm-hmm. The time when they did this and the Sabre and the Phantoms and the that beautiful Viking.
Well, I'd say this is very much of that era. And
I mean, when did they start doing 48 scale kits? About 1977, 78?
Yeah, I think the first one they did was it's probably the Tornado, and then they did the F100s, the A7s, the
G91, F8,
F8 Crusader, all ones that you saw in the back of Airfix magazine that looked, and they looked and sounded incredibly enticing, but with the perspective of being a slightly older modeler now, you realise they weren't great kits. They're good memories, but they're not great kits.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember getting a catalogue in about 1978, an Eschi catalogue that I had for many years. And it was that original box art with the target on it.
Yeah.
The gun sight on it. And it was pretty exciting, but I wasn't a 48 scale modeler, especially not at 8 or 9 years old. I was strictly 72nd scale, so it was 2 or 3 years before Eschi started doing 72nd scale stuff. But yeah, most of that early sort of generation stuff, in retrospect, is really not very good. And then in 1980, that's I presume when they started getting the stuff done in Japan. They started getting a lot of stuff tooled in Japan, and the quality leapt considerably.
Yeah. Well, as you can see, it is a remarkably simple kit. But we spoke about this last week, is the panel lines on this are absolutely sumptuous. This is peak Eschi. They're beautifully engraved. They really do stand up incredibly well, by 2021 standards. In fact, I would say these are kind of like a benchmark standards for this kind of detail. It's, as you can see, it is not massively complicated. The cockpit tub is flat with decals for it. The ejection seats, the shapes are there. There are some molded strap detail on it, but there's nothing to stop anybody from, Verlindenizing it with some greeblies and bits and pieces. I think Spencer said the other week that the only area you might need to keep an eye on is this separate nose panel at the top, of which there's a one-piece panel here, and the fit on that may require a little bit of TLC.
I think Rick Williams built it a few months ago, didn't he?
He did, yeah. I think he built an orange one.
Yeah.
But honestly, I opened this up today and I thought, where's the rest of the kit? This does look like it kind of will build up really quite rapidly. Upper wing halves there. They give you the tip tanks separately, as you can see on this sprue here, which also contains the rest of the cockpit parts and the tail planes and everything. Clear parts they're actually not too bad. They're reasonably clear. Could probably do with a little bit more of a polish, but they'll do the job. The star of this kit, as we spoke about the other week, is the decal sheet. That is absolutely phenomenal. That is really quite stunning, especially the attention to detail in getting the very small and minor stencil differences between the different versions here.
What we've got Australian, Italian, South African.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, there are 2 Italian ones, which we'll come to in a second. I mean, I probably am going to have to build this one, and I'm really utterly confused as to which one to actually build, because as we flick onto the color scheme drawings here, that Australian one is rather nice in that.
Yeah, I mean, the Australian one would be a no-brainer for me. That is the one I would definitely build, because
right.
I thought they looked really attractive in that dark grey scheme. It was sort of like a very modern scheme on a quite an airframe, which kind of works for me.
Well, obviously, being a man with no brain, I actually quite fancied this Italian one in silver with the orange panels. I don't know. I looked at that and I thought, that's just nice. It's nice and simple. There is also an orange one,
which has a certain attractiveness. I will say.
Yeah.
There's something about that says, because that would make it feel like 1980 to me.
But then we have this kind of slightly low visibility South African one from 2001.
Is that silver?
Yes, apparently. Yes. Looking at the grey tones, it appears it is.
I see Johan saying that the decals are closest to accurate as he's ever seen.
Right.
For a South African. So
let's call that up then.
If Johan's saying that, I'll
yeah. It's a tricky one. They are all very attractive schemes, which we covered the other week. I think you're right. I think that Australian one is the I do like that. I do like that. It also, and this is something that Spencer and I touched on the other week when we were talking about this. It also begs the question as to why Italeri, or indeed Eschi, have never done a 72nd scale kit of the MB326 of that family. I know you were saying Supermodel did one in the 1990s, but that was all kind of like raised panel lines, kind of, Italeri 1970s.
It's actually a nice little model. But it's very much like that in that it's very, very simple. Very simple. I built the Impala, the single seat South African one from it, and it was a really nice little model. But yeah, it's of the time. It's raised detail, but really on that aircraft, there's not that much to recess, is there? There's not that much scribing to do. It's like a panel on each wing and a little bit on the fuselage. And
well, I think compared to what John Chung is doing with that his space shuttle project, I think we for us to kind of go, well, kind of rescribe about a dozen panel lines. What my human rights have been violated. It's like, no, really, no.
And John Chung's doing 476 panel lines per square inch.
I'd say on one little thrust reverser section. Drew, do you want to bring your camera down a bit, because it looks like you need a booster seat at the moment, which given that you're actually taller than me, there we go. It's suddenly all gone a bit Barry Letts.
Yeah, there's a problem as soon as you start doing that.
I meant it's that kind of Doctor Who CSO kind of wobbly thing. That's even worse.
You would just start messing around, wouldn't you?
Well, it just looks perfect. Perfect. That's better. It just looked slightly comical because you're just like you look like Chud. The kind of like what no bananas. So yeah, that's the
sat up straight. There you go.
yeah, that's true. Yes, that's Italeri. The Italeri reissue of the Eschi MB326. Yeah, it's a mystery why there has not been a why actually down the years Italeri haven't come back to that and gone, do you know what, new toolkit in 70-second scale.
Same with the MB339, terribly poorly served in all scales.
And indeed, when you think about it, why Italeri haven't even gone anywhere near the I forgot what it's called now. AMX in any scale.
Yeah, I mean, people seem to think that it's Italeri. Well, it's Italian. Italeri are going to do it. Well, they've never done their own starfighter tooling. They've never done their own G91 tooling in 72nd. No, they haven't even done it in 48th, have they?
They have done their own starfighter tooling in 32nd scale.
They've done it in 32nd scale, but all of these Italian post-war designs, Italeri really haven't touched.
Yeah, it's strange.
And it was almost like certainly in the 70s and 80s and through to the 90s before they went away, it was more supermodels kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then the supermodel obviously went away, and I think Italeri now have all those tools. It's whenever you see it kind of on forums or Facebook pages where people say, it's Italian, Italeri will get round to it, I always kind of go, they haven't really got that great a record of doing that.
No, it's more a case of it's not a case of you sit back and think, oh, they'll get round to doing it. For me, it's a mystery why they never got round to doing it. It's just one of those things. We're just going to have a big shout out to everybody who's tuned in at the moment. Let's first of all say hello to Gorilla 171469553.
That's just tongue, doesn't it?
I hope the giant lizards aren't keeping you up at night. Pavel Krupovich, John Patrick Houston, Andy Brennan, Michael Scott, Darren McGuinness, Stephen Pryor, Andy King, Paul Milligan, Lee Souter. I got the wrong glasses on tonight. Jim Carswell, Ian Goldstraw, Dougal McWoogle, Dave Coward, Joe Pescal. Oh, I fouled it up again. Pestaglici.
There you go.
You should see me do the ghost stories. It's even funnier. Artie Mod will testify. Artie Mod. Herbert de Rugiter. Herbert, if I've got your name wrong, I do apologize. Steve Moores, Mike Baldwin, no, not the one who used to live here. Anthony Bird, Ivan Jensen Taylor, Johan Olivier, Wayne A. BT, Ian Rusco, Mike Williams, blah blah blah, Dave Fleming, Agent Fleming, Rob Monfee, and that's pretty much it for that. And Marino, hello Marino. So that's pretty full.
Andy King saying a new tool 148 scale G91 would be very welcome. I feel attacked. Sorry about that. Whoops.
Well, we are getting one, aren't we?
Yeah, but I kind of chucked a spanner in the works there, didn't I?
You and your accuracy. Oh.
And in actual fact, all I did was I congregated all the information that was out there and put it all together in one post, and that's all I did. And then somebody sent it to Kinetic, and Kinetic went, "Oh dear," and promptly pulled it from the production schedule.
Well, to be honest though, you were spot on, because the way that wing leading edge was, the shape of that wing leading edge coming into the fuselage, it wasn't right.
Yeah, there's nothing that we said, but from that, it kind of snowballed over the following few days when we realised that all the cross sections of the fuselage was wrong as well, and all this kind of stuff. And it just kind of snowballed to the point where I think Raymond did the right thing.
Yeah,
he pulled it and said, we'll take another run at it. And hopefully get it right. But I think you have to appreciate that when they're doing these things, at some point you've got to be able to say stop.
Yeah.
At some point there's always somebody who's going to complain that some tiny little detail is missing, but at some point you've got to say stop. But we were actually highlighting big obvious errors with the kit, which is different to saying, oh look, this knacker intake is 2 millimeters out of place, or there's an extra intake here or something like that, which are really minor details. We were just highlighting the big issues with it. So
to use a building metaphor, this was the foundations were not up to spec. We weren't talking about what color the skirting board is.
Yeah,
you know, and it's that kind of thing. It's if they hadn't have corrected it at this stage, there are always going to be things in kits that people are going to argue about, and you know, detail to some extent can be slightly subjective. Accuracy is not, to a great degree, and if you're getting it wrong,
you know, what can I say? Sorry, not sorry. I'd rather have not had that kit turn up and be highly inaccurate and kind of spike the market, than sort of wait another year for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Drew Manton, destroyer of your dreams. But actually, no. To be honest with you, Drew, I think if we wind back to 20 years ago, when the Occidental Fiat G91 came out, what a disappointment that was. And then when the Revell Fiat G91 came out,
the worst thing about
there you go. He's still got Revell disappointment face there.
The worst thing about the Revell one was that it was consistently delayed for about 3 years.
Yeah.
And then it turned up, and it was garbage.
Yeah.
It was garbage. And the Meng one from about 6 or 7 years ago is not one of Meng's better efforts, I'm afraid.
No.
Very expensive, and in my personal opinion, not great levels of detail. The engravings fade in and out in a lot of places, and that's
one of their earliest kits, though, wasn't it? Probably their
one of their first 70-second scale kits. Yeah. It kind of their F102 Delta Dagger is probably a little bit heavy on the detail, you could argue. Then the G91 went the other way, and the F106 pretty much nailed it, I think. But they haven't really done anything in 70 seconds since, which is a real shame. But, hey ho.
Yeah, when you think about it, that is a thunderously underrepresented aircraft, isn't it? When you think how many color schemes you can hang off of it.
What, the G91?
Well, the G91 in its Y, in R and Y guises.
I mean, the thing is, the G91 R, T, and Y, you cannot get to a Y from an R.
No.
It's an entirely different aeroplane.
Oh, it's an entirely different aeroplane, but I'm saying of the two distinct versions there are, the single-engined and the twin-engine Fiat G91s, they are both spectacularly underrepresented on the.
Absolutely appallingly poorly represented.
And like I say, when you know, if you try to get into the minds of people for why, if you were trying to pitch this to a model company, why should we be producing a model of this aircraft, and not do the modeler one of kind of like, oh, because I like it. It is you would turn around and you say, okay, look, here are the number of operators. So here are your markets you can sell this into. Here are your color schemes. Here is an aircraft that is, you do
a G91, you're going to sell 1 billion into Portugal immediately, aren't you?
Yeah.
And it's one of those ones that you almost want to sort of hint and guide Airfix towards in 70 second. It would fit in, it would drop into their range as a replacement absolutely perfectly. If they wanted to spread their wings a tiny little bit. I'm
afraid Matt isn't watching tonight, so I'm afraid that's falling on deaf ears.
Well, it's worth saying.
You are right, because it is, like I say, it's one of those aircraft that if it galvanizes the aftermarket to start chucking out hundreds and hundreds of sheets because there are so many schemes you can slap on it, then you've got something which for a lot of modelers might not just be a one-off purchase. They might come back and actually buy another one. So anyway, we can talk about we're slightly off topic there.
That went off on a tangent, didn't it?
Well, it's like it does. These things happen. But yeah, Fiat G91, that is a mystery as to why. But anyway, Mackie MB326 there. So we're going to move on very quickly now to another Italy kit that turned up this week, today in fact, and it's one that we actually have spoken about before, and that is the 24 scale Volvo 720 GLE. Now this is actually Italy tooling. This is not an old Eschi kit that has been, reboxed by them.
That's a Volvo for which the advertising slogan "It's boxy but it's good" was made, isn't it?
This is quite literally a school run special, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Volvos, they're boxy but they're good.
And this, I've got to say, when I saw this kit was kind of like, on the schedules again, it's one of those ones that just piqued my interest, because I don't build that many cars, but on this occasion I will make an honourable exception. And here we go. You can see that's pretty much the layout of parts. For the beginner, it's actually quite handy being molded in this kind of Matchbox-esque kind of mix of color schemes, because beginners could literally build this kit and not have to paint it, which
is a really simple model, isn't it?
It's actually very nicely done. I'm just going to kind of break down the bits and pieces here. So obviously you get your one-piece body shell molded in the external color. There are a few, I wouldn't call them, what they appear to be molding glitches in it, but nothing major, nothing that just like a swipe over with some micro mesh isn't going to cause any problems with. But it is one of those things you've always got to keep an eye out on kits of this vintage, just a little bit of mold wear. But this, by and large, looks nice and fine. It's also nice hard plastic as well. You get the interior is molded in grey, and there's actually a not half bad, decent attempt at doing a bit of texture for the carpet. It's not objectionable. Seats are nicely done.
But let's face it, by the time you filled that carpet area up with crisp packets and drinks containers and stuff, like any normal Volvo would have.
Goodness me. Goodness me. And also we're going to get complaints from Volvo drivers now. Oh, we'll put them in the same drawer as the Kiss fans.
No, I'm speaking the truth.
We'll put them in the same drawer as the Kiss fans. You get the main chassis parts there, and engines and some of the interior parts are molded in black. This kit only offers you left-hand drive, so there is no right-hand drive option offered in the kit. Nothing to stop you from doing a bit of chopping, converting if you want to, which leads us to the decal sheet, which I've got here somewhere. Oh, I've mislaid the decal sheet. Oh, goodness me. I had it right in front of me just now. And
So what's the decal sheet going to consist of?
The decal sheet is actually going to consist of number plates.
Yeah, that's about all it can, surely.
Yeah, it's a shame because it was very nicely printed, but it's absolutely gone. It's decided to go for a walk somewhere.
Good Lord. Look at that side profile, that car. It looked like it was made from stick bricks, doesn't it?
It does. It does look like, somebody's kind of got a Lego set and just, decided to design their own car. Oh, there we are. Amateur hour. There's the decal sheet. So you get quite a nice selection of number plates there. Excuse me. Yeah, I think I go for the French one because there's just a little bit of splash of colour on there, and colour is blue. So mix up your light metallic blue colour of your own choice. So rather interestingly, they do list it here as light metallic blue Tamiya colour TS14. Should we pause and consider that Italeri are pimping Tamiya paints in their kits?
Oh, they've Tamiya have kitted a box Italeri stuff for years, haven't they?
That's true. So, yeah, same importers in this country, so I think there's a fair amount of kind of commercial crossover there.
There's a fair bit of overlap, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's, as I say, it's not massively complex. I mean, this is construction-wise. You're probably going to get this together in 2 evenings at most. As ever with anything like this, probably the most, I wouldn't say complex part, but probably the bit that is going to give you pause for thought is the finish. But I think on this one, I think the Tamiya TS14 is going to make short work of that. So very nice. And the clear parts. There we go. You've got the nice big bit of clear parts there. Pops up into the roof, and you've got the parts there for the light clusters and the indicators.
You know, almost like the transit van kits. I can see that being one you want to represent with 150,000 miles on it, with rust spots and
do you know what? Yeah,
you know, all that kind of thing. Because Volvos go on forever, don't they?
They do.
So that's almost, you know, you could do that as a very old beaten a beater, as they call it.
Yeah. I almost forgot to mention rubber tires, which are actually rather nicely done. Some nice tread pattern on there. Those will pass the MOT, and also some chrome parts as well for the get them out of the thing. Some chrome parts for the wheel hubs and light details and things. So, yeah, vintage kit. I mean, I think this one is mid to late 1980s when they released it. But I actually, I'm in a bit of a car mode at the moment. I'm actually looking forward to actually slapping that one together and having a bit of fun with that. So, next, you're next.
Am I next?
You're going to do a live unboxing.
I'm doing a live unboxing. So, I don't know if anybody's had a look at Jennifer's YouTube channel this week. She did a review of one of the Fengda airbrushes. And I kind of looked at that and went, okay, you've talked me into it. I'm going to order one. So I actually ordered the next one up from what Jen reviewed. And if I just switch views here.
Right, just to get something straight a second here. So me and Spencer eulogizing about this did not move you, but as soon as Jen started talking about it, you took notice of Jen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Do I need to explain that?
Unbelievable.
Anyway, so yeah, this is the I bought this because it's really the next step up from the one that Jennifer got. Because I wanted one. This comes with 3 different color cups, 3 different nozzles, and I just want to see how it pushes varnish really through the 0.5 nozzle. So as you can see, this turned up yesterday. It still actually has the cellophane on it. So this is as live an unboxing as you get. So yes, Dave, I did buy a cheap airbrush. This was $29.95. So shall we have an open? Shall we open it and see what we get? So let's have a little look. And I must say, the one thing that does impress me is for something that is so cheap, it's remarkably well packaged, isn't it? So you've got this nice plastic container for it all. He says, trying to open it. Plastic insert. And let's have a look. Let's get everything back in its place. So yeah, a nice little braided hose there. I mean, you'd pay probably £10 plus for that anyway. It feels a little bit light, but it looks well enough made. There's an adapter for the to go on the end there to allow you to screw it into the compressor of your choice. He says throwing it around. A little pipette there. I don't know. I don't know why there's a pipette there. A tiny little spanner, which you can use to obviously disassemble your airbrush. Now, let's get the actual brush out, shall we? Let's have a little look at the brush itself. So, good Lord, it's in there quite firmly. So I'm going to take that out. So there we have a little £29.95 worth of airbrush. And I have to say, just pressing that trigger and pulling it back, it's actually a lot smoother than I might have expected. There's a needle adjuster there to adjust the needle backwards and forwards. And I think, like as Jen mentioned earlier this week on hers, the reason that these are so cheap a lot of the time is because of the way they're manufactured. They'll be mass produced, and the tolerances, as you can see, for things like threads are quite they're quite loose in terms of tolerance. The Mac valve there, although in fairness, it's got a Mac valve. You know, what 30 quid airbrush has a Mac valve? You wouldn't expect it. So if I shake it, you can hear stuff sort of shaking, if you like. But overall, I think it's quite well made. I'm sort of, so let's just pull it apart a second, because it's designed entirely in the Iwata fashion. If you're used to Iwata airbrushes, whilst all the parts might not be exactly the same shapes, it's the same general assembly and disassembly process. Now the air hose here is fixed. It's fixed brazed in there, so it's not separate like you'd find on something like my HPC here. I'll just show you the kind of difference in quality. So you can see that there's quite a lot of play in that. There's a little bit of play in the Iwata, but it's on a piece of the airbrush that doesn't really matter. But there's a lot more in this. So what does that mean? In terms of everyday use, it shouldn't mean an awful lot. What it means for production is that they can sort of knock a lot of these out without having to do any significant inspection on them. Something like the Iwata will, each part will be inspected at each stage of the production process. For this, once the machine's set, because the tolerances are so open, they'll just bang however many they want out and probably never check never do any inspection past the first off again. I speak as I'm a precision machinist by trade, so this is me speaking, if you like, from knowledge. If I'm doing very tight tolerance stuff, I will check each one as it goes along. I'll dial the machine back and bring it slowly into size. If I've got a big tolerance, once the machine's set, I won't check the part again. I'll check the first one off and I'll check the last one off. And I don't expect there to be any significant difference. So that's where you get the value for money. That's where that they save money in they don't have to have such stringent inspection regimes for this sort of thing. So there's a little bit of resistance. It feels okay, but I think Jen said that once she'd lubricated it slightly, it was a lot better. So let's just put a little bit of lube on the needle there, and push that back. Push that back home. So what I wanted to try was specifically the 0.5 nozzle. So this is all 0.3 stuff. There's a 0.2. There's a 0.5. And there's a 0.5 needle. And there's also a 0.3 needle in there. So let's just pull that needle out. Pop our nozzle off, like so, making sure not to lose it. So all of these parts here, these are for the 0.2 nozzle, and these are the 0.5. So again, I will just pop. It's actually pretty good. It's a really nice fit, actually. It feels pretty much like assembling an Iwata. So there's our 0.5 nozzle over the end. And there's our 0.5 needle. So what I'll do is I'll just make sure that I'll just put all of our 0.3 nozzle and needle away, like so, and then that goes in there. And like I say, that that's actually very smoothly into there. And screw the back on there. And I really think it, you know, for £30, honestly, it feels a lot nicer than it has any right to for that money. Let's say that, especially for this, when you've got, you know, you've got 3 nozzles and needles, 3 different size color cups. So let's just put the smallest color cup on for now, because we're just going to push a little bit of paint through this, hopefully. So screws in. And there you are, you're basically set up, ready to run now. So let's switch my compressor on. Feels very nice, the Mac valve. The Mac valve is very, very coarse, I have to say. I would almost be tempted to have the Mac valve fully open and control. Have the Mac valve fully open and control the pressure from the compressor, I think would probably be the best idea, given how coarse this is. But it really doesn't feel too bad at all. So let's just get a little bit of card out here. So this is a bit of, just put a bit of IPA in here, a bit of isopropyl alcohol. And you can see there's nothing fine about that line, but then I've got the 0.5 needle in there. But that's pretty much what we wanted. So let's find some paint, shall we? Let's find some paint. Any old paint. Sorry, bear with me. So let's have a bit of XF53. Let's find a brush for a second. That'll do. So just give it a little bit of a stir there. So I'm not going to thin this very highly because I'm just going to be pushing a bit of random paint through it. Put that to one side, put that to one side. That's actually surprisingly nice. I'm looking for a bit of. Okay, let's spray a bit. This is my fine molds Phantom. I'm only using a bit of Tamiya here, so I'll strip this off in a second. But I just want to see. Let's close that down. So I've thinned that down quite a lot now. Quite a low pressure. Yeah, I have to say I'm favourably impressed for £30. A lot of beginners or cheap airbrushes feel, you know, obviously cheaply made. This, if you're comparing it to, you know, things like an Iwata or the, you know, something like that, which is a £300 getting on for a £300 airbrush, or a £200 airbrush, you know, a £30 all-in-one sort of airbrush kit is not going to compete, and it's not supposed to. You know, it's a mass market item for, you know, let's be honest, it's a growing hobby in the country where it's made, China. These modeling is a growing hobby, and they want to push a lot of these out to people with what I suppose you would call fairly limited incomes, and it fulfills that beautifully, I would suggest. You know, for a first airbrush, I'm going to say yes. I think, you know, based on what I've experienced there, just using that to push some grey through, and the general feel of it as I broke it down and had a look, I'm going to recommend it. I don't think you're going to go far wrong. Simon, I honestly I don't know what pressure. I just this is one of those airbrushing sort of conundrums, is especially when you're using a Mac valve. I never look at the pressure. It's you know, it could be anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20. I never look at the pressure. I go by the sound the airbrush makes, and you know how it feels. I always struggle when people ask me for, you know, sort of how far do I thin the paint and what pressure do I use till it feels right. But I'm going to say I'm suitably impressed for a, you know, for an entire kit with 3 nozzles, 3 color cups, a braided hose, and all that sort of stuff, for pretty much less than the cost of an Iwata nozzle replacement. I'm really impressed. I would say that one was bought from Amazon, so it was a real, you know, it was the easiest airbrush to buy ever. Straight onto Amazon, called it up, found the one I wanted, and it arrived the next day. So if anybody out there hasn't made the move to an airbrush, or is looking for a backup or a daily driver, that sort of thing, have a look at the Fengda range, because at this point I'm really impressed.
Well,
I'm really impressed.
The thing that both, because I got switched onto this first of all because it was one that Martin Kovac mentioned on one of the night shift videos, and he said that a friend of his, he was looking to get another airbrush, and a friend of his said, "Oh, the co-host has gone." A friend of his said, "Try this," and he was using it, and he was raving about how good it was. So I got in contact with Martin and said, "What was it?" And he said it was a Fender FE 180. I went out and bought one, and I was immediately impressed the moment I opened the package, not only by the actual quality of the packaging, which might sound a bit strange, but it's little details like that that suggest they're taking it a bit seriously, right?
Absolutely. It's like, you know, that is a nicely packaged airbrush.
Yeah.
That really is. You know, I mean, I spent, you know, several £100 on a new GSI one a couple of weeks ago. And the packaging isn't, you know, it's a little bit better, but there's not a lot in it.
But a lot of these kind of really cheapo airbrushes that you can buy usually just literally come in like a plastic tray and nothing else. There's no branding, nothing on them. Fender are nailing their name to this.
And seem happy to do so.
Now, when I actually got the airbrush out and just did the kind of weight and balance feel to it, first thing that struck me was how solidly it was built. Having done some tests of El Cheapo airbrushes in the past, you get that kind of feel of kind of like, it almost feels like it's going to collapse in my hands because it just feels so light, and the componentry feels soft. And in fact, I was doing some actual product testing of 3 airbrushes for a company that wanted to rebrand them. And all 3 failed in the space of using them in the evening because everything was so soft. And I said, don't touch them, don't go anywhere near them. Yeah. But when I started using the Fender and I actually started putting paint through it, and I had to actually stop and think, this is a £26 airbrush I've got here. I mean, and one of the things I did, people may remember this, is I actually did a live demo where I painted this 72nd scale Zvezda Elephant. Okay, I did go back and touch up a few areas where I was a little bit heavy-handed on the night because I was rushing it a bit, but that was painted with a £26 airbrush. That's what a £26 airbrush can do. And if that is the, if that's what you are trying to, that's what you're aiming for, that's what you want to kind of achieve. It's. I'm like you. I've got my Iwatas. I've got my Badgers. I will always say, go out and buy the best quality airbrush you can buy, because the gap between cheap and quality has always been quite wide. But these Fender ones have turned up, and actually they've closed that gap considerably.
They've closed that gap significantly. Yeah. What I would say from my perspective is that I wouldn't use it in preference to any of my GSI or Iwatas. Frankly, it would be, I don't see any reason why anybody would expect me to do that. But if there was a problem with one of those airbrushes and I was like waiting for a new needle or a new nozzle or something like that to turn up to get it back into service, or it's being serviced or whatever, I would happily use that for a short period of time. I wouldn't try and do any massively complex spraying with it, but I would, amongst cheap airbrushes I've seen and tried, that's the best and not by a small margin either.
Now, I am really curious to see how far I can push this one, because I've got a couple of projects that I've just background projects that I'm using the FE80 on, FE180 on, just to see how far I can go with mottling and, just really, as I say, pushing the limits of how finessed can this airbrush actually get. And actually, I actually painted the 2 little plastic soldier company vehicles with. Now, okay, they were single color vehicles, but the point there is that even if you're a beginner to airbrushing and all you want to be doing initially is trying single color schemes, these will do the job for you.
You can just slap a quick coat of paint over. It's always going to give you a considerably better finish than a spray can.
Or indeed, people who struggle with paintbrushes or try to you do get that question. They're trying to achieve certain effects, but they can't because they're still using paintbrushes and they want to migrate to an airbrush. My feeling with this is, in the long term, yes, if you've got the funds to do it, get yourself a quality airbrush. And the quality airbrush is, the kind of like base limit for me is something like an Iwata Neo. You're pretty much guaranteed not to go wrong there. But
I'm just going to check with Pavel's just asked, do we think the color cups are interchangeable with Harder and Steenbeck?
That's a good question.
Bear with me. So there's a Harder and Steenbeck.
So I don't own any H&S airbrushes.
There's a Harder and Steenbeck. That's a Harder and Steenbeck color cup taken out. Appears no.
Mystery solved.
Yeah, no, that's as far as it is. So it's clearly a different thread. So let's just try one of the other color cups here. The answer, Pavel, is no. It doesn't. You cannot use the Fengdar color cups in a Harder and Steenbeck. So there you go.
Well, to give you another indication of,
we solve problems on the hit on the
absolutely. Yeah, that's an example of using that Fengda FE180 in action, and that's the 72nd scale, the old Eschi Stukasu Fuss, and I actually did crush that a bit in terms of it was getting towards supper time, and I thought I need to paint this thing, and that was done using SMS paints as well. But again, that just gives you an idea of that 72nd scale. That gives you an idea of the kind of finesse and control that airbrush can do.
2 inches.
If you would spend a bit more time. I rushed that, but ultimately that still did the job.
Yeah, I mean that's what, 2 inches to 2.5 inches.
Yeah, it's
gonna I still say, if you've got the money, go for something more upscale. I'm always going to say that. I'm never going to change. But it's good enough for what it is. It's the best. It's the best cheap airbrush I think I can remember trying. You always seem to immediately end up fighting your expectations with cheap airbrushes, and in this instance, I didn't. It worked. It worked straight for an airbrush like that to work, to just plug in the air and immediately get a good, a good function. That doesn't often happen with cheap airbrushes, does it? You normally end up, you're normally tweaking and fiddling around with stuff to get anywhere near what you want. And well, you've just seen me go from taking the cellophane off to spraying grey paint in 5 minutes with no issues whatsoever.
Well, one of the ones that I tested a couple of years ago, I literally unpackaged it, plugged it in. I always just kind of put a little bit of isopropyl in first of all, to test things and also just to clean it through, or give it a clean through.
Yeah.
This one, immediately I got the bubbles of doom, so I thought, okay, that's not a problem. I took the head assembly off. I tightened up the the brass nozzle. I just made sure, just checked it and everything. Did it again. The bubbles of doom. I thought, right, okay. Just disassembled it. Did it. Checked it again. Bubbles. I thought, right, okay. Let's just make sure that the brass nozzle at the front is, properly tightened on. That it's not getting any feedback or anything. Just the smallest amount of tightening with the wrench, and that was it. It threaded. It came off. It was done. That brass was softer than butter, and it was like, there you go. Cheap airbrushes for you.
Cheap airbrushes. That feels. I have to say, I took that nozzle off there with the wrench. and it felt pretty nice. It didn't feel overly, the needle didn't feel overly soft. The needle, the nozzle didn't feel overly soft. I've no doubt it's not going to be the same quality as the metals that are used in the Iwatas and stuff. As I say, you wouldn't expect it to be for a tenth of the price.
Yeah, I think the thing that's going to be interesting is, in the long term, how long these things actually last, and that's why I'm going to be using mine consistently. So I'm just prepping for the next bit. I'm going to be using mine consistently just to see what its longevity is. If by the end of the year both of mine have just stopped working, I will come on and tell you they've stopped working. So.
I know, sort of like, but kind of like the flip side of that, John, is if you've used that for 6 months and then it stopped working, is that a bad return for 25 quid?
Still cheaper than still cheaper than using spray cans. Incidentally, in my defence, I have to say, after last Wednesday's great airbrush massacre, on the Badger Chrome, it is a design feature that the nozzle does not screw in like it does on Iwatas. That nozzle on the little brass nozzle on the Badger Chrome actually just pushes into place.
Yeah, I mean, I've just seen Phil Jones saying you can do that with your fingers on a harder and steam bet. You can remove the nozzle, whereas you have to move a wrench. Yeah. You absolutely can, Phil. And if I swap back, this is my harder and steam back, but the difference is there's no thread on the nozzle on a harder and steam back. It just pushes in with a nylon seal there. So it's a fundamentally different way of disassembling the airbrush compared to, an Iwata, where the nozzle is much smaller and actually screws in. Like I say, I don't like harder and steam back. I own one because it was bought for me as a present. But other than the fact that it's marginally easier to disassemble than an Iwata, not that the Iwata is difficult in any way, shape, or form. That aside, this never gets used because I don't like it. I just don't. Yeah. Some people swear by them. I swear at them. Some people will always say it's better than an Iwata. I will disagree. Basically, you don't have to stand by your airbrush. You just stand by the results you get.
Yeah. So, like I say, in my defence, the reason why that nozzle came off the Badger Chrome last week was because it literally just pushed that tiny little brass nozzle fits into place, and then it's held in place by the nozzle guy. So anybody's got a Badger Chrome out there, but just be aware that when you're cleaning it, it will plop out the moment you touch it. So we are going to move on very, very swiftly and talk about one more kit tonight. And we're going to hold one over for Wednesday because, that's keep them coming back for more. And we're going to talk about this the other week. We've actually got one now, which is the Italeri Iveco, I think, Turbo Star 190.48 Special. I am especially looking forward to actually building this for the simple reason I've never built a 24 scale truck at all, ever, in the history of ever. And Spencer and I were talking about these and saying about how these are much more interesting because they're not the ones with all the fancy artwork on. These are actual work mules. These are the ones that you'll see on the roads. So, you what? Sorry,
hardworking trucks.
Hardworking trucks indeed. So we're just going to have a quick blitz through what bits you get with this one. I've just got to switch cameras again. So what you get is, goodness me, let's just say, first of all, what you get is you get a lot of bits in the box. The depth of this box is not for show. That is absolutely filled to the brim with bits of plastic. Oh, dearie me. And it's it's hernia inducing, this. There's quite a lot of plastic to go in there. So what have we got here? We've got essentially here, these are most of the bits for the cab. You've got the floor there with a nice kind of texture on it again. You've got the parts of the grills, got some of the engine details, doors, mud guards. I think that's part of the that's the roof section there, which again has got some nice texture in there. You get the floor with the side panels with the Iveco logo on it. Nice bit of tread plate there. It's nicely done actually, and it's again because this is a completely new area of modelling that I've never really dabbled with. I've never built big 24 scale commercial trucks. I'm immediately relishing the prospect of building this as a challenge. Takes me out of a comfort zone.
John, do you want to zoom that in? Do you want to take over the screen to show that rather than splitting the screen?
Oh, right. No, we're fine. We're fine.
Okay.
All right. There we go. All right, there we go. You got the fuel tank there. You got some more bits for the tread plate, some of the wheels, some of these look like compressed air things for the pneumatics for the vehicle. And we have these are for the chassis, and you've got the axle assemblies. Got the seats there. Again, this is very Matchbox. Get your teeth in, man. Matchbox-esque in the way that these things are molded in color, which means for a relative beginner, they could actually throw this together and not need to paint it. I know that makes some people make them bristle, but you know, this hobby, it's a wide church, and everybody builds things for different reasons. You've then got the actual cab roof itself. This is all the cab details, which is all rather nicely done. Then, we've got more bits to do with the actual engine assembly itself. Got the fan there. What looks like the cylinder blocks. Part of the exhaust system. This, unlike that Volvo, this is going to be a little bit more of an involved build, I think. I think it only offers, I'll check the instructions, it might only be left-hand drive again. Then you've got some just molded plastic rather than chrome parts for the wheels. And the clear parts, I'm not going to go about the plastic bag. I know I hate it when people do kit reviews in plastic bags, but that's just the clear parts. Then we have the decals and markings. Goodness me, well, actually, we'll have a quick run through the instruction sheet. As you can see, there are quite a few bits and pieces that you don't need to use. So if you are a truck modeler, that's good news because that all goes into the spares box. Chassis assembly there, and putting together the suspension, the engine. And again, this is going to be a nice challenge for me because I think you can tilt this cab forward to show the engine detail off. So I really do fancy not going to town in terms of detail, but going to town in terms of paint to get all the different kind of metallic effects and things for the engine. It's an entirely different discipline. I'm not going to cover this one with mud like I usually do with my tanks and things. Wheels, mudguard assembly. You're still on step 7 here. You're still dealing with the chassis. There are the pneumatics there. Then we get to the cab and cockpit and putting that together. I think you can tilt this. And yeah, that's pretty involved. And then finally you have the decals themselves, which are beautifully printed. And I'm just actually checking, bear with me again, I just wanted to check to see if it only offers a left-hand drive version by the looks of things. There may actually be accessory sets out there to convert them. If you are a diligent enough modeler, there's probably no reason why you can't chop these bits out and swap them around. But the decal sheet does offer quite a few schemes there. Number plates, lots of nice little detailed decals on there. Honestly, because I've been building too much of the same thing recently, I am really looking forward to actually sitting down and building this. This is entirely a different discipline to me. It's also a bit of a peradventure. It's also got the potential to go horribly wrong. But I thought that when I built the Italeri Vespa scooter 2 years ago, and that still remains one of my favorite modeling projects because it was learning on the hoof. And who knows, I could discover a brand new love for building 24th scale trucks. So yeah, that's the Italeri Iveco Turbo Star 190.48 special, which is now actually out there on reissue from Italeri.
I always see those kits, and I just think of Ted Taylor building them in scale models.
Exactly,
he's smashing them out month after month because he was a long distance lorry driver by trade.
He was, yeah.
And I remember when he first started making them, I was like, "But you're an aeroplane modeler. This isn't right. Don't do it." But yeah, he was just doing them month after month after month, and doing a fabulous job as well.
No, I know. The thing is, I know something like this doesn't interest you, which is why. Again, no. I know we've spoken about this. Modelling is a broad church, and it's like, something like this. On the other hand, it's so beyond my comfort zone that I do actually relish the idea of delving in there. But we talked about this some time ago. Am I right in thinking you still have not built a ship kit?
No, I haven't.
Now, that might change this year.
No, I've built some submarines, but...
that might change this year.
Yeah, that nuclear...
Exactly. You got the old psychic connection going here, finally.
Lord, I love those big Russian icebreakers. I love them all. I think they're fabulous ships. And I'm drawn more to, for whatever reason, I'm drawn much more towards commercial ships than warships. I don't, the bulk tankers and things like that. They just really, really appeal to me as model subjects, which is odd because you'd think it'd be all the warships and stuff, but it's not. It's the commercial shipping. In fact, I bought some of those German paper models a couple of years back.
All right, yeah.
Kind of looked at them and like these tiny little canal steamers and things like that, and I bought a few of them. I haven't built any of them yet, but I just absolutely love the look of them, and there's hundreds of them available. So yeah, that icebreaker has my attention, shall we say?
Yeah, absolutely, Pavel. This is good. This is like one long episode of Pygmalion. This is apparently it's pronounced Iveco. So honestly,
now we know Iveco.
Iveco. I'm not murdering airbrushes during the week. I'm killing the English language. But there we go.
I don't know what language is that.
Well, actually, Iveco.
Is it Italian or?
I think it is Italian. Let's just have a quick read of the instructions here. This is our ignorance of truck. Italian manufacturer Iveco.
There you go.
There we go. At least we're hot. At least we're hot with Eschi, because when I hear people go Eschi, I'm like, oh,
Iveco. There you go.
Very good. Yes, beautiful. Bellissimo. Right, we do have one more kit, but we're going to hold that over till Wednesday, because we're going to be rattling along here all night tonight. But yeah, I'm probably much in the next few weeks or so. I'm actually going to be kind of like almost hitting my peak modelling season, because the problems will be on, and so I'll be in the workshop every night listening to the live broadcasts.
And given the weather at the moment, it's not like you're going to be going out anywhere, is it?
Well, I was just looking out there tonight and thinking, on Sunday nights, I do like to sit out there around about this time, fire up the chimney and do the old ghost stories live. Might be doing it outside tonight, be in the front room.
It's torrential rain and wind here at the moment. It's just I don't know where. Like I said the other night to some, this year's whipped on by. It's November already.
Well, funny story. I had to go to Shepton Mallet on Thursday for my second COVID jab, my second Pfizer, because of communications breakdown locally. So I took somebody with me who's already double jabbed up and everything, and does lateral flow test. So he was my co-pilot, so that's no problem. Just in case I was a bit iffy driving 34 miles back home. Anyway, we're driving across the wonderful Somerset countryside, and I said to him, "This feels like October, November, doesn't it?" The wind was lashing, the trees were swaying, there were branches and things flying across the road, and I said, "This is autumn."
You know, I looked at the weather report earlier, and it said the minimum for tonight is 5 degrees.
Back just before my birthday a month ago, when I was in Chepstow, I was baking. Right? How do we get closer to summer and the temperature actually starts going down?
It does. It just feels like it does feel like November or February, doesn't it? It's just
I did 2 live broadcasts from the garden on it was on Thursday and Friday because the weather it was dry, but it was quite stormy and blowy. So it actually added a little bit of ambiance to the stories, you see. But goodness me, no, I'm welcome to the British whinge about weather.
Yeah, we're British, therefore we shall talk about the weather.
We shall talk about the weather. Right. Any other business? No, we've already done
it. I don't think so, apart from the fact that my special hobby order didn't turn up in time to show anybody tonight, which I'm particularly peeved about. But there you go. Hey ho.
I'm delighted because it's probably the same kit that I'm eagerly awaiting to start talking about. So the fact that you haven't got it and I haven't got it, there's a certain beautiful symmetry to that.
But I will have it by about 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So
all right, okay, fair enough. Well, in that case, then we will definitely be talking about that on Wednesday, won't we?
I'm going to be on late this week, so I will not.
Oh, are you? So you're not on Wednesday?
Oh, I will not be available, I'm afraid.
Oh, okay. So, that's fine. That's okay. Mail the kit to Mike Reeves, and we'll talk about it on Wednesday. So.
Is Mike going to be stepping into the breach then?
Well, Mike says 100. Mike says 104 Fahrenheit here in Phoenix today. So join us on Wednesday when our guest presenter will be Mike Reeves. He doesn't know that yet, but he does now. So on that, all right,
104 degrees. That's basically the center of the sun, isn't it? That's like. That's pretty much against us pasty, isn't it? Yeah, that's like, dear me, that is just obscene.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, any other business? No. That's it, really. Thank you to Drew for stepping in the last 2 nights, and you will be back as and when you're available.
Yep.
And obviously, people go and have a look on his page because he will be flaunting his special hobby, 30-second scale whirlwind like there's no tomorrow.
And I think we need to remember, should anybody think that it's all about that, I've also got a couple of the SF260s coming as well, the little 70-second SF260s.
Is that the
little prop trainer thingy?
Oh yes,
the Royal Marche.
Yes. Actually, before I've now had the chance to. We'll just have a little bit of any other business. I have had the chance now to look at the special hobby ones and the KP ones.
Yeah.
Competition, is there? There's no competition. It's what I don't understand is that the KP ones, they beautiful CAD renders and everything, fabulous, absolutely fabulous. But the actual moldings of the kits, they almost still look like they're actually kind of hand scribed.
Yeah, a lot of them are. A lot of them are. A lot of them they might do some renders and stuff, but they're still largely hand designed, I think.
Which is bizarre because you were building the KP MiG. Was it a KP MiG 19? And you were actually saying that's really nice.
Yeah, it's probably the nicest. It's around here somewhere. I haven't finished it yet.
Right.
But KP are very, very variable in terms of their quality these days, and a lot of them. I mean, the SF260s. You compare them to the special hobby one, and there's just no comparison. It's just it's just why would you? And I think the special hobby one is only about £9.
I saw them in Antics and they're about £10, and I was going to buy one, but I'm so overloaded with projects at the moment. It was just going to be a case of,
So anyway, we'll have hopefully I'll have a little lock at that at some point this week.
Yeah, jolly good. Right, well, we'll put everybody head over to Drew's model page and on Facebook and on his YouTube channel, which he can. Well, just share them across to our page, Drew. That way. Also, we did put up the link during the show for Jen's Fender airbrush review, but we'll put that up on the page as well, so you can go and follow that. That's pretty much it for tonight. I'm going to go and get me supper ready and get ready to do some ghost stories. And,
I'm going to have another cup of tea and then look at let's have a look. Doing a bit more to the Mirage 2000. Hopefully getting the camouflage on this later. Now, talking about panel lines like we were earlier, the engraved detail on this under a coat of paint is just phenomenal. I mean, seriously, it's some of the best engraved detail I have ever seen, period, on any kit. I'm not saying, it's good for a limited run kit. It's just good. Full stop. End of story. And the kit has been a delight as well to build. Models fit are pretty much my favourites at the moment. They are just, they're doing Mirages, so they would be, but the surface detail on it is just mind-blowingly good. So buy with confidence, people.
And I think we can say the same with the little Fender airbrushes as well. If you,
absolutely, buy with confidence. From what we've seen so far, we've yet to establish the longevity of it, but I don't see any reason why, as long as you're not, incredibly ham-fisted, I don't see why it shouldn't last quite nicely.
Yep. Okie dokie. Well, big thanks to Drew, and he will be back very, very, very soon. I actually look forward to seeing you at some stage, Drew, because we haven't physically been in the same presence for over a year now. Not since the Blitz tea rooms.
It's getting on 18 months, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Crazy. So hopefully, John, once I'm double vaxxed now.
Yeah.
So hopefully, next month or two, maybe I'll be able to pop up for an evening.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just fairly certain there's lots of stuff in your workshop that I need to be bringing home with me. That's all. So don't look like that. I'm helping.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, it just remains for us to say, stay safe, stay out of trouble. We'll see you Wednesday, and goodbye, everybody.
See you later.